Hey team, very good morning. I hope you're doing well. Apologies on the very early start, particularly for those of you in the UK. But in order for me to give you guys the breakdowns to the level that I wish to do so, then I'm gonna have to, at least for the time being, start the recordings and the breakdowns a little bit sooner rather than later. So hope the recording reaches you well in time for you to use in the morning before London Open, and then you'll be set and ready for the days and weeks ahead. So Friday, what do we have today? In terms of news-wise, it looks pretty clear. July the 10th, 9 o'clock in the morning. We've got not much at all to really have to look out for, particularly going through the US dollar. So I'm happy to see that. With that said, then we'll go straight to the charts and see what the day has in store. So the charts have been posted this morning for you all to have a bit of a look at. But in the meantime, let's go through it using the standard method to explain the reasoning behind and explain how I'm going to look to approach the charts today. So DXY, where are we? Let's start from the top. So weekly time frame, if that's going to load. We're not trending out of any higher time frame weekly order blocks, but what we do have is a wick imbalance on that top right hand chart by way of weekly time frame. If I scroll all the way to the left, you can see that wick imbalance, a result of price then coming up to that area at some point in time, and then for whatever reason whatsoever, price then made a low from there. Of course, since, as you can see by the green illustration, we are now trending towards the upside, so higher time frame. I still do believe that we are DXY strong, looking at potential longs longer term. However, in the immediacy, if we go to the daily time frame, we can then look to understand why potentially we could capitalize on a bit of DXY weakness. So again, higher time frame, daily time frame, higher highs and higher lows on that daily time frame. And I do believe any move towards the downside on that on the DXY could well simply be just a higher low being created, searching for that higher high. However, with that said, until we get a firm closure on the daily time frame above that daily 50 MA, I will indeed remain bearish from that point of interest on the daily time frame. So with that then said, refining that daily order block down, since that's where the higher time frame directional bias begins, we're into the 4 hour time frame. 4 hour time frame, since we are then looking potentially to maybe capitalize on immediate DXY weakness, can we then identify DXY in terms of lower time frame breaks of structure in its most basic form out towards the downside? I believe we've got that. So we were trending towards the upside on that 4 hour time frame. You can see the red illustration there, bottom left hand chart on the 4 hour time frame. And then you can see how price broke down, creating that first low, breaking also that 4 hour 50 EMA for the first time in this element just here. And then we made that lower high for potentially that lower low continuation. So certainly on that 4 hour time frame, we're definitely looking short bias. And then the reasoning for now looking for continued shorts down at least towards this 4 hour order block is because ordinarily I would be then looking to put an order block in this area to potentially look for immediate turnarounds on the DXY just based on that higher time frame. So we don't have that because there is no higher time frame. There is no 4 hour order block. So 4 hour time frame only. I do see that price could potentially gravitate towards this 4 hour order block before that DXY strength could then look to step into the market. I'm not sure if that's going to happen today, last trading day of the week. So we'll just have to see how the cookie crumbles. Now, in terms of immediacy, now what we're looking at 50-minute time frame only and understanding is price potentially now. So to put everything on its head and look in the opposing direction, do we have reason why DXY strength could be an immediate play just based on this low for potential lower high for that lower low continuation? So either way, you can look to utilize that point of interest to gain reason to take a position on a cross pair. For good example, I'm currently short GU from this morning as a result of price coming into that session low on the 15-minute time frame. The reason behind that is, of course, I'm trying to identify where this high came from, just on the 15-minute only. So if I then hedge my bets and place a 15-minute order block to this side here, drag it across, it then becomes a session low where price is failing to break below. I wouldn't be inclined to, let's say, without price really making a full shift above this area to then take a position again, looking long on the DXY from that area, because all I'm seeing now at this point is this in terms of liquidity that is going to be looking to be attacked. So the next time price gets there, again, it would need confirmation before looking to take DXY strength out of that area. But what I'm seeing, it's not a quadruple bottom in terms of looking for price to push away from that area. I more see it as liquidity where price is going to want to push below that area and take all those immediate long buyers out of the market. So that's my thought process at the moment. You can see higher time frame. I'm long term looking long on the DXY, and now I have a reason to believe before that long is going to occur, reasons why the 4 hour time frame is indicating a little bit more bearishness to come out of the market, particularly down into that 4 hour order block, supported long by the daily 50 EMA, where price currently is respecting beautifully towards the upside. Then the daily, you've got that high, potential higher low for that higher high continuation. Now, the reason in terms of already going break even on GU shorts is for that reason as explained, if I can get my words out that early in the morning. I have no idea when this higher low is going to occur. It could occur down by the daily 50 MA. It could occur here, and price could absolutely rocket to those highs. Who very well so knows? We don't know. But for now, it's a valid point of interest because price is failing to break above or rather below that area. And what I'd be looking to identify, if price returns back to this area, can I get some confirmation towards those highs before looking to take price further towards the upside? So that's the thought process just now in the DXY. We'll revisit towards the end of the call again, as I understand there are two potential biases coming from that DXY. But just remember, the DXY is being used as a confluence, unless you're trading it as the index itself. I'm just using it as a confluence to understand, is price ready on particular pairs I'm trading, to understand, can I now look for a position? For good example, you see where price entered into this morning while I'm at the charts doing my analysis. And if we go straight away to GBP US dollar, where I'm currently short on, you can understand why I look for a position. We had the DXY coming into the 15-minute order block looking to go long. And then I had, and it's not just, okay, take the position because the DXY is in the area. Look at the analysis now on GBP US dollar. We do not have, in my opinion, any supporting bias on that weekly time frame. I will zoom in just so you can have a better look. But there isn't anything there based on higher time frame. I mean, there is a tremendously large weekly order block, which actually would support my reasons for going short. And that using that reason for going short based on the fact that I'm longer term DXY long, it makes sense immediately. Now, when I'm looking to refine those areas down, so forget about that higher time frame weekly order block for a moment, price was, well, as we can see, we made a low in the market. If my illustration is going to draw a low in the market, price came back up for that lower high, lower low continuation. Now it's our job to look to identify, in terms of that break of structure to the left here, is there an order block that we can say created that? Now we have that daily order block where price is failing to break and close above for the day. And what was nice upon my entry this morning, price was actually bullish above this 4 hour order block. That is still valid at this time. So I still have 20 minutes left for price to reject this 4 hour order block to the left hand side. With that then said, range back down to the daily 50 MA is still very much so valid, which would make great sense based on the DXY as well, considering that we could potentially see the DXY at some point move towards that daily 50 MA. If the DXY moves short towards that daily 50 MA, then of course my short position on GU will be obliterated. Well, in terms of going break even, I am at the moment, so I'll be out break even, hence why the management is very important. With that said, refined area down on the daily time frame, 4 hour order book, very much so still valid as a result of price failing to close and break above that area on the 4 hour time frame. That's the importance. So I was happy to take a short position whilst price was above that 4 hour order block. However, my interpretation of the market should be that price should look to reject that 4 hour 50, excuse me, 4 hour order block to the downside. Then with that said, do we have range back down to the 4 hour 50 MA? Yes, we do. And why is that of any importance in terms of what I am saying? Well, we broke above that 4 hour 50 MA and we continued towards the upside. We came back down and rejected that for, re oh, good. We rejected that 4 hour 50 EMA again, and we continue to push towards the upside. With that then said, this 4 hour order block at the time, as a result of breaking above most recent areas to the left hand side, then became a valid point of interest. Price dipped into that, and of course, good confluence for a long position based on where are we? Weekly time frame as well. Weekly candle actually closed below that weekly 50 EMA. So in fact, we still have great amount of confluence to look for as short, regardless of where price is above that weekly 50 MA for the time being. Very much so still short bias based on the fact we're looking for price to reject that weekly 50 MA towards the downside potentially today. Today is the last trading day for that to occur. Of course, we can be wrong, but that is, of course, the confluence for taking a short position. Now, with that then said, as I mentioned, 17 minutes left remaining on this 4 hour order block to hold. And then you later on, or myself, if I'm taking out break even, could look to reuse the area coming out of the market, hopefully then so with breaks of structures, which I will go through just now. So as you can see, price has trended above that 4 hour 50 minute, but I can't emphasize enough. Its own the importance only lies with the 4 hour candle in relation to that 4 hour order block. As you can see then, an area above that 4 hour order block to the left hand side. And this is an area that I foresee is a nice point of interest because price was trending up towards the left-hand side. We then had a move to the downside, which then, of course, did not break structure, but it did leave a 15-minute order block behind. So therefore, another reason why I'm looking for confluence to take that position is because this 15-minute order block didn't really do too much. You can't say it broke structure points to the left-hand side. I mean, it most certainly would have broke some lower time frame structure points, but in terms of the 15-minute time frame, I'd more so be wanting to look in and around this area for price to in terms of a 15-minute order block. However, there wasn't a 15-minute order block available this morning. It had been broken and closed above, therefore it has been taken off the chart. Then when price came back up to this 15-minute order block, that's where you have to then tie in all of your confluences across the charts based on higher time frame analysis, based on the rejection of that 4 hour order block, based on the fact that we're looking to reject the daily order block as well for the day, and therefore that's why position was executed. So how could you look to enter that today? A couple thought processes. Look for the most significant break of structure, i.e. the most recent area that caused the high in the market. Therefore, for that to then be taken with absolute confluence and confidence, rather, you want to see that area in the market, that structure point that caused the most recent high broken to the downside, pull back up into an area of interest that hopefully would have left you a 15-minute order block behind, and then you'll look for your confirmation, or that could well be a limit order based on all the confluences that you have for a short position. And of course, you've got lovely range back down to the most restrictive EMA for the day, which at this stage is going to be the daily 50 EMA. With that said, you are expecting, or I am expecting, based on my strategy for price to want to reject that weekly 50 MA for the week. So it does seem far-fetched. However, until proven otherwise, that's how the strategy will take precedence. So that's GBP US dollar. I think that's a very good setup for the day. And if you miss not so much miss, but if you're not able to get access into that short position, then of course, if price comes back down to this area, I would be quite reluctant to take the long, I must admit, because that weekly 50 MA, by the time price comes back down to these areas, the weekly 50 MA is not actually on side. It is against our position, i.e., price is going to want to look to close below it. However, it would be a half okay position based on the fact that you're using the 4 hour and the daily 50 MA towards the upside. So I would be looking at confirmation longs before looking to get involved. But I don't personally, I will not be taking a long position from that area. I think it's quite risky based on the fact it would then go against the highest EMA that we have, be it the weekly 50 MA. So most certainly longs for me is, excuse me, shorts for me is certainly the way to go today. Even taking out break even, it would just be one of those, but I understand that I'm in aggressively, therefore I have to manage my position aggressively as well. Wait for the break of structure, pull back, lower time frame break of structure, and then I will be looking to re-short that position on GU. So I like GU. It's up the top. While I'm there, let's go to UJ. I liked UJ a lot. So we've got a couple of conflicts, but also users confluence today. So if we are on, so forget the DXY for a moment, US dollar JPY, we're trending out of a higher time frame weekly order block. So though that said straight away, that should whet our appetite to look for short positions out of that higher time frame weekly 50 weekly order block. So then with that said, if we move down towards the daily time frame, can we refine that area down lower and lower and lower, refine it down for us to get a better entry? First and foremost, we have a look at structure. So daily time frame, what do we have? Most certainly clearly bullish. However, when we are moving in this method of travel, i.e., no clear higher highs and higher lows, it's very difficult to depict whether this move here is a break of structure. Now, what we'll have to do in order to understand if that's a break of structure is roll down towards a lower time frame, such as the 4 and the 15-minute time frame, to begin our bias there. So we have a potential break of structure here in towards that daily 50 MA where price was looking to reject it back up to the upside. And the key significance is if this was in fact higher high, higher low, the question now must be asked, well, this order block, we should have gone through it and made a higher high. So potentially my thought process on the DXY could be slightly off. Or alternatively, it could be correct that we could still make that higher high. However, based on order block selection, I will not be looking for long positions when I'm in and around this area because my order block will take precedence and I must be short biased. With that said, what I could do and what I've missed in the immediacy is now I have to start making things make sense. So I can see that we've had a hold up here, and the first thing I'm doing is looking left to understand is there an order block there? So there is indeed. So we've got a nice trading range based on that daily time frame. So what we have now to understand whether that makes sense, we now have range back down to the daily 50 MA, which is now supported, or if I flip that, we're now have range back down to the daily order block that is supported long by that daily 50 MA. But the key point of the matter is we have range back down to an area where we could foresee rejection back towards the upside. Of course, for today, I will not be taking long positions from anywhere around this area. However, if price came back down to this daily 50 MA daily order block where price is rejected most recently, then of course I could potentially look for a long position. And what I would have to do is seek confirmation by way of the DXY as well. So at the moment, I really like US dollar JPY in both directions. Now, if we head towards the 4 hour time frame to make things make a little bit more sense, remember we were trying to understand whether this was a break of structure on any time frame to give us that confluence to make or to take rather a short position. Again, as we can see, it's very difficult to say that we are, if for good example, higher high, higher low, higher high. However, what I could do or what we could place onto the chart in terms of analysis is if we're counting this as a higher low confirmed higher high, then this move is certainly a break of structure. Then in order to get that confirmation that has that break of structure left us with a valid order block behind. It had indeed, and we had a 4 hour order block just there at the highs. Price then came back into that order block and gave a beautiful rejection just here, and we've now moved towards the downside. So what I'll be looking to understand if price can come back up to this area. Again, it's quite far-fetched. Alternatively, something I've missed off the chart on purpose, we have a 4 hour order block just here. Now, if price will want to gravitate back towards that 4 hour order block, of course, we are restricted then by the 4 hour 50 EMA, so our range will be quite tight, even more so if the candle closes bullish above that 4 hour 50 EMA, then this is most certainly our target in terms of management for a short position. And then when I refine that area down, it's just here. You can see that 15-minute order block. So it is that a little bit darker for you guys. So it's just here, that 4 hour order block we've just most recently placed in the market. Refine that area down right up at the highs, just where we like it, 15-minute order block towards the downside. So at the moment, it's making sense. For us now to say, does it make sense on the 15-minute time frame? We're going to have a look at 15-minute price action structure to understand if it's on side. So we have that beautiful break of structure to the downside. 15, if it's evident on the 4 hour, it's most certainly evident on the 15-minute time frame. Here is the area in the market where we did consider whether that could be a higher low on the 4 hour time frame. We've called it a key structure point on the 15 as a result of price moving to the highs clearly from that area. After not doing too much at all, then we had the push, break below, looking for order block selection, move back down to the lows. 15-minute order block came in, tapped it beautifully, and off it went. So therefore, I believe we have good confluence for continued shorts. Now, does that make sense considering I'm already short buyers, GBP US dollar? Well, what this says to me is, well, I have range back up to those highs where I'd like to take a short position on UJ. That means my potential short position that I'm already in, or any other cross pair short positions in terms of EU and AU, could well be quite well short-lived. And that also suggests that confirmation would need to be had if price returns on any pair, because this could be the higher low, maybe a retest of the higher low to go again for that higher high. With that then said, we're also short bias on those cross pairs also. So it's I believe it's a nice technical chart to now understand that what makes more sense. And at the moment, I think they all make good sense. And the only way to place safeguards upon ourselves is by looking for confirmation when price returns. So we have had a nice break of structure of most immediate 15-minute price action. So what I'll be looking to do today, once price comes back up to this area, I look for my highest probable entry criteria, and I would be looking for a short position on UJ. I will, of course, double check the DXY to double check if it makes sense, but I like the short on UJ. And just to go back in terms of the contrast for GU, that suggests for me on GU, my targets are very clear. Once UJ reaches a point of interest where I'd be considering a short position, it's then time for me to exit that GU short position because I cannot short GU and UJ at the same time. It wouldn't make sense. As inverse correlating pairs, I would, of course, lose one or the other if I take the same directional position. So UJ, I like it. Waiting, nothing at the moment for me. Waiting for price to pull back up to this area for the short. And then, of course, in terms of longs, then I'm right down at these lows, this 4 hour order block where we have a refined area, excuse me, already, where we have a valid 15-minute order block left behind. So currently 4 hour order block, 15-minute refined, very much so available. Happy to look for a short position from that area on UJ. So I wanted to visit UJ first to give a nice contrast between UJ and GU. So we've got US dollar CAD next. US dollar CAD, I like US dollar CAD, also giving light to the fact that we could well be DXY weak, rolling for the rest of the day. So we were trending out of no higher time frame bias at the moment on on US dollar CAD, but for this tremendously large is my favorite word. Tremendously large order block just here. I've not put that on the chart because that would make the chart quite clogged up and messy. But what we do have is a nice higher time frame daily order block to the left hand side on the to the bottom right hand side, but the left hand side order block is just here. Let me make that larger for you to see it. Cool. And the reason for that is that is the only daily order block available in and around the area that caused a move to the downside. Therefore, it's our job to inspect that order block when price gets back down to it. And of course, you can see on the daily time frame, we are in a little bit of a range. Now, if we go to most recent price action on the 4 hour time frame, we can see that range better illustrated on the 4 hour. So you guys know how I like to approach 4 hour ranges. I'm waiting for a 4 hour candle to break and close below that area. I now understand if I am incorrect about how I've drawn this range, there could be a little bit of wiggle room to the downside, meaning that we haven't quite clearly broken out of that range. We do have some signs that we could be looking to turn around by way of 4 hour break of structure of the 4 hour 50 EMA. Why? Well, we were restricting it to the upside. We had a break below, causing a potential low in the market. Order block selection back into the area for that lower high, lower low continuation. And what I'd be hoping to understand and see if we can get a 4 hour closure below that area. Once you get a 4 hour closure below that area, range confirmed, break out of the range also confirmed. I'll just be sitting patiently for price to come back up to the area up at those highs before looking for a short position down. With that said, 15-minute time frame, it's not really it's not it's clean, is what I'm trying to say, actually. And there are significant areas in the market where I believe a short position could be had. So based on an Asia range setup, I like this 15-minute order block, particularly for you guys waking up later on. Once this video is out, the Asia range to the downside, I hope, will be available. So what I'll be looking to capitalize on is a lower time frame break of structure and a short position back down to that Asia low. Why I like it is we do have good range on that Asia range. US dollar CAD, so a maximum of 20 pips, but to be honest, I'd be quite happy to cover just these areas here and understand once I've got my lower time frame break of structure, as well as a break of structure of most recent structure points in Asia, then I'd be quite happy to take that short position. I think it's a nice position. We've got good confluence based on the 15-minute breaks of structure. The downside, the 15-minute time frame is trending beautifully. All other 15-minute order blocks have been mitigated, i.e. most recent break of structure just at this point here. So low, back into the order block that created that. Lower high, what do we have? An order block just here that is not available. So therefore, the order block that we're looking to take the short position from, and what I mean order block not available, it's already been mitigated. This one just here, if I get it accurate, so you see what I'm talking about. That's no longer available. So it's the only 15-minute order block available. So therefore, there must be some degree of confluence coming out of that area, considering it caused a low in the market. So I've got my alert approaching it. In fact, let me put it slightly higher just there. And I'll be waiting to see once London opens. Let's say London has opened now, and the most recent high in London or rather the most recent high in Asia has been created from this point. I'd want London to push down, come back up, lower time frame break of structure, then I'll take that short back down to fill Asia to the left-hand side. If I don't get that break of structure here, then of course I still must have that 1 minute break of structure up at the highs, but it will be a lot less aggressive, i.e. a clear break of structure on the 1 minute time frame, not an aggressive one. So I hope you guys know the difference between the two at the time. What we can also see on the fact that US dollar CAD is pushing to those highs, which should give us nice confluence for US dollar JPY. And as well as that, the fact that UJ has some room back towards the upside, I would say more room than US dollar CAD has, that could suggest to me that US dollar CAD could indeed move up towards this area before the short position down. And that wouldn't be too wrong to understand either. So definitely confirmations all across the board, and that would be the best way to take a position with confluence. So if you're not interested in the Asia range, I definitely suggest waiting for some of the higher areas in terms of higher time frame directional trades. And what I mean by that is the fact that, of course, we're in that higher time frame daily order block, 4-hour order block, not really available, but up at these highs, we are clear session highs. If I put my crosshair on the 4-hour time frame, So I think we're right there up at these highs just here. So this 4 hour order block would become, I would say, more valid than actually this one based on the higher time frame directional bias. So clear if I put this on like so and drag that across so you can understand what we're actually refining, it would be this order block up at those highs. So confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. If price got to this area, then I would be quite aggressive for a short position down based on the fact that all should be aligned, particularly if at some stage before that short position, we get a closure below this key structure point on the 4 hour time frame by way of 4 hour candle closing below. That's US dollar CAD. So now I am looking at Euro US dollar as well. Also, a good confluence for the reason why I took an immediate short position on GU. Higher time frame, weekly order block. I do see reason for price want to gravitate back up towards the weekly and the daily 50 MA, slightly higher above current price action. So where are we? Up at those highs. I think that would be a much better area to short from. However, price on the 4 hour, if we go for, yeah, price on the daily time frame, again, reason why price would want to gravitate further towards those highs. Or we can see on the weekly time frame as well, this weekly candle did all the business. We finally closed below areas to the left that price was holding, therefore low in the market, expecting that lower high before the lower low continuation. Heading then to the daily time frame to see if we can have that confirmed. Look at the structure points: lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower high, lower low, expecting a lower high at some point potentially into the daily 50 MA, weekly 50 MA, refine all of the order block down on that weekly time frame, and we're up at those highs of the weekly. So there's definitely room towards the upside now. Why I'm using this as a confluence rather than actually trading EU, trading GU rather, opposing to trading the EU short, is for the following. I think that there is clear reason towards the upside and also structure on the 4 hour. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. We can see again, 4 hour order block. We had the low created price came in, respected it, fell to close above. However, from that order block, we didn't get a break of any structure points. We're just returning. Therefore, of course, a short position could well be available, but our range now is being limited by that 4 hour 50 EMA, and clearly price is stepping up. So if we get rid of that and pop everything in the inverse, so therefore we were making lower lows and lower highs. Let's say here, we then had price not breaking above, not breaking below. This could have been the first sign. However, no break of the 4 hour 50 MA. Call it a high for now, potential higher low into 4 hour order block, which then did the magic. Higher high, higher low, potential higher high. So I didn't really feel comfortable taking a position from just a 4 hour order block when price could well be in the realms of making that higher high. I think it's a lot clearer here that we are very much so bullish on EU opposing to GU. But what I did is simply use it as a confluence to understand, okay, well, EU has now re-entered into a valid point of interest on the 4 hour time frame. Can I see a rejection from that 4 hour order block? If I can, and of course, it's more than likely I'm going to get a rejection on GU's 4 hour order block as well. So that's the basis for taking that. What I won't be doing, however, is taking any short positions until I get a break of structure, at least on that 15-minute time frame, because we can see, even just zoom down, that we're very much so bullish, i.e., high created. This could well be the higher low for a higher high. And of course, just intraday perspective, we're just trending towards the upside. Therefore, what I need to see is a break of immediate 15-minute structure to give me at least some confluence to take a short position. Most idyllic scenario is the 4 hour candle closes below that 4 hour 50 EMA. Therefore, we then have some confluence to take that short position as well. Lower low created, lower high back into a 15-minute order block that would need to be there for us to take a short position out of it back down towards these areas, which in my opinion would suit quite nicely because price hasn't yet tapped into that 4 hour order block. So once price comes back down into that 4 hour order block, then absolutely, of course, I would be expecting that type of move coming out of the area. With that said, there is good range and good reason to understand why price would want to reject the 4 hour order block and move back towards the highs by way of most restrictive 50, excuse me. I can understand why price would want to reject that 4 hour 50 EMA and move back towards the highs to the most restrictive EMA against the position, which would be the daily. And the reason for that is, don't forget, we're currently only trending out of a 4 hour order block. Using a 4 hour order block, we really would want 4 hour structure on side. That's why for me the better position would be longs, because price action and structure is developing better, in my opinion, in the long bias aside from the short. Therefore, I would like to take a long instead of the short. If I am going to take the short, then I want to see some breaks of structure, or at least a 4 hour, or for at least the 4 hour 50 EMA broken to the downside. So that's what I've got at the moment. Happy to sit out of shorts if price wants to move short out of that area, come back down to these lows, and I'll be quite aggressive in my long bias. However, at this time, for me to take a shot, I want to see break of structure, pull back to the highest 15-minute order block, lower time frame break of structure, and then I'll take the short position down. Failing that, I believe the better short scenario would be up at these highs based on higher time frame directional bias. Weekly order block, refined daily, refined 4 and 15 is already there, waiting for us to just sit patiently and understand that if we were back testing, we'll just be clicking through the candles and be waiting for price to get there. So we must revert back to what we would do if we were simply back testing. And as I say, zooming out, I no longer have the thought process that we are trending bearish. So we're even trending bullish, in my opinion, on the 15. Hence why, at the very least, I need to see a 15-minute break of structure before even considering a short position on EU. Hope that makes sense, team. AU. Cool. AU is a bit of a conflict, but I like it. So AU, we'll start from the weekly time frame. Weekly order block moving towards the highs. I'm expecting price to want to move out of that weekly order block. So we do have a nice trading range. If I zoom out, you can see this weekly order block. We were looking to take short positions out. I don't think I managed to get too many short positions out of that higher time frame weekly order block. But what I do remember is taking some long positions on AU. If it wasn't this week, then certainly last week, based upon the fact that price was trending out of now this higher time frame weekly order block towards the upside. And why is that of any significance? Well, we created a break of structure on the weekly time frame to the left hand side, left an order block down, or left an order block behind. Pricing came back in. So of course, supported by that weekly 50 MA, I'm absolutely all over that, looking to take price towards those highs. Now, because we cannot trade from weekly order blocks, looking to refine that area down, have a look at that. It's beautiful. Daily time frame, daily order block right there up at the low, down at the lows rather. It's the only daily order block available, and price did the absolute business, fell to close below. Therefore, we can continue to use it and be long bias from that order block. What I like in the inverse direction is it's got clear targets by way of daily 50 MA supported by daily order blocks. So there are very clear targets, and what we can see is we have clear room towards the upside that we like to see. So I really, really, really like AU. 4 hour time frame, look at how trend has been developing. 4 hour higher highs, higher highs, leaving 4 hour order blocks subtly behind. Nothing at the moment. However, as you can see, if I re-put this on, we had area in the market where price defended break above. Then what we had was price break above the area in the market, but also the 4 hour 50 minutes. That's the clue. Higher low, higher high, order block behind. Price came back down into the absolute lows of that session lows. We've moved to the high, creating a new higher high. Therefore, I expect a higher low to be created for that higher high continuation back up into this area, where we can anticipate a move back down towards the downside. So with all that said, let's have a look at the 15-minute time frame to see exactly how potentially we could get into that trade. I don't really expect, well, there is reason for price to want to gravitate slightly lower, because there is a 15-minute order block left behind by way of break of structures. I really like AU. Probably should have gone over that first, but we'll save the best to last. Structure, 15-minute time frame, break of structure, break of structure, break of structure. It's nice, clear, crystal clear price action, and refined. We can go higher time frame directional bias from this lows. Therefore, we can be quite aggressive from this area. If price wants to come back down towards those lows, I'll be looking for, what would I look for? I'd look for a lower time frame break of structure, and I would look to take that position, particularly because it is a Friday and we don't have too much trading hours left of the day ahead. Also, with that said, where is that weekly 50 EMA? It's a lot lower, unfortunately. Just about to understand whether we certainly do have support by the weekly 50 made towards the upside. However, for some reason I can't spot it just here. Maybe it's not showing. Let's go weekly 50 MA, all intervals. I think it's this one there. Yeah, so price is a little bit further above that weekly 50 minutes. So we can't really take that into consideration on the lower time frames. However, certainly even look at the Asia range for good support in looking for that long position. It just looks crystal clear. That's the type of price action you really want to get involved in. And when you're journaling these types of positions or showing your investors these type of positions that are also traders, these are the positions that it doesn't even matter if you take a loss because what more can you do? All price action in favor of the longs. Therefore, I'm looking for a long break of structure on all intervals. If you get for one more lower time frame break of structure when price comes into that area, I think that is a very, very, very valid long position on AU. So with that said, that kind of puts the thought process of, well, it doesn't put the thought process of immediate shorts out the window because if I'm going to take a long, what if I'm currently shorting EU, excuse me, GU, then it makes sense because for me to take a long on a pair that I really, really, really like, price needs to short on a pair that is correlated. So I hope you see how the reason for me taking a short position rather this morning on GU, the whole package. It's not just like a DXY point of interest. GU looks good, shorted taking everything into consideration, and this is the level that I do believe is required to really make it longer term consistently in this, is that you really have to have the full picture. And I know I talk about DXY confluence, cross pair confluence, on-suit confluence pairs. This is why, because if I want to take a long position on a correlated pair, price needs to move down. So therefore, if I see a setup on a pair that looks good to short, it would make sense. So therefore, I even have a short target based on the fact, well, we know when UJ gets to the highs, I might potentially want to take a short on UJ, meaning that I can't short UJ and short GU at the same time. However, I'll bring into the mix AU, which looks beautiful for a long position. So when AU gets to a valid point of interest, I know that my current short position on GU should probably be exited, and I should then in turn probably bank those profits, understand that I've done well for the day, seek confirmation on potential UJ shorts or a potential AU long, for good example. So I really hope that makes sense, and I hope you guys have made it this far to the video to capitalize on what I'm saying, because it's really just not DXY confluence, pair looks good, take the position. It's the full package. We're trading all of these pairs. They're at our disposal. We can use them as we so please to do so. So use it, create the package, have in your mind, right, if that alert goes off, that means this should be happening X, Y, and Z, and really get into sync with price action because when price was tricky, we were doing exactly the same thing, right? So now that price action is pretty basic and standard. But just got to execute when it makes sense. So that's the thought process thus far. You can see I've got alerts galore on AU so I don't miss it as price starts to gravitate towards the downside. And that's not just for AU principles. That's so I can understand what's going on GU as well. So I hope you can understand the reasons behind that. With that said, the only caveat that we do have is we have a 50-minute point of interest as a result of this could well be the most recent high created in Asia by way of that 50-minute order block. So, of course, when price comes back down to that area, I would indeed be expecting a rejection towards the upside. With that said, higher time frame directional bias is also a standalone entity by itself. So, I have the option to take a potential Asia range from here if it looks good to do so, and so do you guys as well. Certainly got the break of structure 15-minute order block left behind. I'd want to see significant breaks of structure. So what I mean, again, just to give you a better explanation. So let's say that, where are we? So if we're looking for a long, let's say here is an Asia. Let me go to the 1 minute time frame so you can have a better understanding. Okay, so this is 1 minute structure AU. So what we'd want to see is a structure point to the highs. then what we want to see is the intention of London coming in. So the intention is break. Then when price comes back down to that 15-minute order block, particularly from a 5 minute, if you're looking to refine it, or a 1 minute order block down at the lows to increase your range, then what I'll be looking to do is take an aggressive 1 minute break of structure imbalance, take the long back up to fill Asia to those highs. If I do not get the intention shown, i.e., London opening, breaking most recent Asia, let's say lower highs, then I need the full confirmation down at these lows. It's just as simple as that. So that's the Asia range type of criteria that I use in order to fill Asia back up to those highs. So if we're able to get a 1 minute break of structure down at those lows, then that's the range. That range is very much so good enough for me. AUs, you can have a maximum of 15 to 20 pips. I don't think it would be necessary. However, 10 pips is also looking good, but it's more than likely that your break of structure, hopefully, is going to come somewhat lower. So that will be the Asia range type of criteria. And then, of course, higher time frame directional bias. It just looks beautiful in my opinion. And I'll be ready to take this quite aggressively by way of lower time frame break of structure. So those are the main pairs. I think there's a large amount for us to get stuck into for the day. With that said, what we will visit is another pair that I did analyze. Well, I've analyzed all of them to be fair, but GCAD I think is quite nice as well. GCAD would be a reversal. So that's why I've definitely left that till last. It's definitely got an amber, if not a red, but GCAD would certainly be a reversal type of trade. We have no higher time frame confidence, and there's no reason at all for me to be looking for a short position. We're only lower time frame points of interest that is guiding that. We're clearly bullish. So understand this is my sort of worst case scenario at the moment. I'm not really interested in it, but if nothing else materializes, it could well be one to consider. If I don't want to consider it, there's no trades for the day. It's as simple as that, guys. It really honestly is. As I said, nothing weekly, nothing on the daily, but for the price just telling me we're so bullish. Are you really interested in taking a reversal? I'm not against it, but it needs to make good sense. I need to have range, I need to have significant reasons of doing so, and I need to have nothing else available that makes good sense. So, based on 4 hour time frame, that's really where the analysis begins. Immediately, restriction down to the 4 hour 50 MA. Why? Well, we've been pushing via that 4 hour 50 MA. Reasons for taking the short. Here's a clue. Break below. Of course, with that break below, one line will do it. Structure points, potentially. It's only potentially. I can't clearly say that that is the higher low for the higher high. What I could do is say, well, if you could be wrong, Charles, still break of structure. So two clues. Break of the EMA, break of most recent 4 hour structure points. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen if there is an order block there as well that price is broken. We could put one in for good measure. So no, that's not an order block. We can't put that in. So at the moment, even this, it's our restriction because if I were to look for a long, this would really be where I'd be looking to take a long from. However, I don't believe that a long should be forced from there, but it's an order block in the opposite direction where I need to be mindful of. So what do we have? 4 hour pushing bullish. However, we've got a clue break 4 hour 50 MA, clue break of structure, lower low, lower high, back up into that 4 hour order book where price is doing what? Failing to break and close below. Therefore, excuse me, close above. Therefore, my initial thought process of higher high, potential higher low, because this could also be a higher low for a higher high, currently is second runner. The first instinct would be, well, this could be reversal territory. Second instinct is, well, actually, we could just be messing around before actually just making that high. Therefore, what do we need? Confirmation. Do I have that confirmation just yet? I don't believe so, in my opinion. That 4 hour order block, of course, left a 15-minute order block behind. Price came beautifully in. I love to see it. 15-minute order block and price came out of it to the downside. Unfortunately, what I would have loved to have seen is exactly this. I would have loved to have seen that most recent push area being broken to the downside. It wasn't, therefore, it just remains a structure point. So for me personally, to get involved in a short position, it's just a no-brainer. I have to see that structure point broken to the downside before I look to take a short position. So left it till last. It's definitely one to consider. But for now, structure point broken to the downside, and I don't mean on anything lower than the 15. I also don't mean this in terms of just a wick like that. For me, we need to see clear evidence of a structure break below. Even better if we could have a break below the 4-hour 50 MA. But what would that mean is once we start to superimpose this on all intervals, breaking below that 4-hour 50 MA, we then return into territory where actually could well be looking for a bit of that. So it really is the worst case scenario for me to consider. With that said, even with price breaks at 4-hour 50 MA to the downside, we would still have range back down to these lows because here, when you refine these areas down, that is where I'd be expecting the reaction from that 15-minute order block. So on the flip side, potential longs could be a play. But in the immediacy, short is the setup, which I wouldn't mind looking to take. But the long would probably be my favorite in all honesty. So we'll just have to see if price comes down, starts giving rejection from that 4-hour 50 minute, there's nothing else to consider, then perhaps a GCAD long would be my favorite based on the overall directional push, weekly bullish, daily bullish, 4-hour bullish, but for some subtle breaks on the 4-hour 50 EMA and the potential break of structure. But as I've mentioned, that low created just here could well simply be high, higher low, search for the higher high. Price may want to tap back into the area before going high. So I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But with that said, there is a large amount for us to get stuck into for the day. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I hope you're all well. It's quiet lately, but as I mentioned, I am very much so still around. I'm just traveling pretty frequently at the moment. And you guys know me, I like to give some substance to the charts, not just post charts. But at the minute, I think the best thing for me is to wake up a couple of hours earlier, go to bed a couple of hours earlier as well. And then I'm able to comfortably do these types of breakdowns where I'm pretty satisfied at what I've got to say, because that's exactly how I'm going to be trading throughout the day ahead as well. So do take care, everyone. I hope to catch up with you all soon. In the immediacy, do well and see if you can weight those breaks of structure and execute price with confidence. And that's just trading. Trading with confidence becomes a very easy game, or trading becomes a very easy game when you can just trade with a bit of confidence. Understand that you've waited for what you said you're going to wait for. Understand that your journal makes good sense. There's no conflicts in your journal. Exactly what you said you're going to wait for is exactly what you've done. And if you take a loss, it's just part of your trend, of your uptrend towards consistency. Nothing is exponential. There will be peaks and troughs, even in your own performance. You guys should have seen that even in my own performance. It's up and down, but longer term, over the course of weeks and months, it's all an uptrend, right? So we take the rough with the smooth, we continue to execute, continue to study your strategy, understand what must be done before taking a position, understand the better plays, and just keep going. All the very best, team. Hope to catch you all soon. Take care. Charles.